I was going to say help me welcome Dustin to the stage, but he kind of already beat me, so let's just give him a big round of applause for being here. Yeah! Alrighty, guys. Take it away.
All right, so my name is Dustin. I do product management for Synology America, and I'm going to talk about disaster recovery and beyond, as you can see from the slide. So Marcus's presentation was all new things. Mine's going to be a little bit different. There are some people here who are not familiar with Synology products. So kind of what I'm going to do is introduce products that already exist, and I'm talking about how we improve them. And then at the end, I will premiere some new stuff. So let's get started. All right, so I'm going to start off with synchronization. So there's two ways to do synchronization with Synology servers. You could sync up with a public cloud using our Cloud Sync application, or you could use our private cloud application, which is called Cloud Station Suite. So the difference here is public cloud means that it's stored on somebody else's servers. Private cloud means that it's stored on your hardware, your Synology hardware that you are going to purchase after you listen to this. So let's talk about Cloud Sync. So this allows syncing with Google Drive, Dropbox, Box, Backblaze V2, they are here, Google Cloud Storage, Amazon Cloud Drive, and even more cloud providers than this. So you could do one-way syncs or bidirectional sync. So bidirectional means that no matter where you change the data, whether it's on the cloud server or it's on your own Synology NAS, it will sync to the opposite server. And we also support unidirectional syncing. So with that, you could upload from the Synology NAS up to your cloud service or from your cloud service back down. One thing that is nice about this is you could have it retain the files if they're deleted at the source. So for example, let's say you have Amazon Cloud Drive. They offer unlimited storage, right? So a lot of people have been trying to utilize that lately. So let's say you run out of room on your NAS. You can delete files on your Synology network attached storage device, and it won't delete them at the cloud storage. So that is a nice option to allow you to use this as a form of backup. We do support encryption for this for all these cloud providers. So that was the introduction to the application. Let's talk about how we are going to improve it. So we have encryption and compression on the fly and an administrator mode. So previously when we did encryption with Cloud Sync, what it would do is it would copy the file over to a temporary folder and then encrypt that file and then upload the encrypted version up to the cloud service. Obviously that's not very efficient. You had 3 copies of the file, so that's a lot of read and writes just to get that one file uploaded. Now we encrypt on the fly, so you're going to save some time getting that up to the cloud. For people who aren't encrypting, you could also use compression. This isn't a feature that you have to turn on. It just works automatically, so it's very nice. What this does is it makes the file smaller, so when you send it over the network, it's going to use less bandwidth. It's not going to be compressed on the cloud service, but it will be compressed in transit to save you some time. So let's talk some numbers here. So what you see in the blue is the previous version of Cloud Sync, and in red is the new version. At top, we have a use case where there isn't any encryption enabled, and we're syncing 10,000 files. On the left are some Synology NAS units, and then the bottom axis is the amount of time that it takes to sync the data. So as you can see, without encryption, you see performance increase across the board. So that means it's taking less time, so the bars are shorter in the new version of Cloud Sync. When you turn on encryption, the amount of benefit you're going to see is dependent on the Synology NAS product. So at the top of the list is the RS3614XS Plus, which is one of our enterprise units. As you can see, it's very good at encryption, so you actually see a big performance difference here. With the 216J for syncing those same 10,000 files, it doesn't save as much time because it doesn't have built-in hardware accelerated encryption. So either way, if it's encrypted or not, you still see performance improvements with Cloud Sync in DSM 6.1. So to show you the administrator mode, I'm just going to do it live, and you want to switch over this, Brandon? And just show you the interface. So it's easier to explain than it is, easier to show you than it is to explain. So all right, so I'm going to open up Cloud Sync. And right away, you can see the change here, if you're familiar with it. So I have 2 users that each have their own synchronization going on. So I have the admin user and the Dustin Cloud account. So they're syncing to 2 different cloud services. So let's say you had 50 of these syncs going on at once. Each of your employees has their own cloud service that they're syncing up with. As the IT administrator, you could log in and get a view of all of these users at once and what they're doing. You could also do it by cloud provider. So if I had 10 people syncing with Dropbox and 5 with Box, that list would be bigger for the Dropbox and then smaller for the Box. So this is just a small change to make IT administrators' lives a little bit easier. So that is just one way that we're improving our applications in DSM 6.1. So that was the public cloud. Let's talk about our private cloud solution called CloudStation. CloudStation allows for bidirectional syncing with file versioning. So what a file version is a historical version of a file that you can go back and recover. So let's say you edited a file a week ago, and you need to restore back to that specific edit because the current version you have might have something wrong with it. So with the file version history, you can go in and restore that specific file. So as you can see, with my nice little chart here, you could synchronize it in a lot of different ways. So you could go from Synology NAS to Synology NAS. You could have that synchronized with the desktop computer, or you could synchronize it with your phone, and then of course all these things synchronize with each other. So no matter where you are, you have the data available. So the way that we've improved this is we are giving you a new timeline design that makes it easier to restore your data. So there's 2 different ways that you could access this. So you can do this from CloudStation server inside DSM, or you can do it with CloudStation backup. So I'm gonna go ahead here and give you a demo of what this looks like. All right, so I'm gonna close CloudSync and go into CloudStation. So if you're familiar with CloudStation, this looks pretty much like how it did in the previous version. The change here is this version history button in the middle. So when I click on it, I can now view my documents. So these are my shared folders on the left. So I'm going to go in this document folder. And now I can go back in time to specific points and then restore the data. So here, previously you'd have to restore a file at a time. Now you could click multiple files and then restore them to the NAS. So there's 2 options here that are very important. When you restore it, you're replacing the current version that is being stored. When you download it, that actually saves it to the computer that you're using. So if you need to grab a historical version of a file, you don't have to replace the version that's on your Synology NAS. You can just download that one file as necessary. So this is going to make restoration to specific points in time much easier than it has been in the past. So this is a big improvement for the usability of the version history feature. So now I mentioned the CloudStation Backup also lets you do this. So if you're not familiar with CloudStation Backup, this is backup software that you run on a desktop computer that allows you to back up your data to your Synology NAS. Since it uses the CloudStation server, what it allows you to do is have file versioning for the backup data that is on your computer, and it also lets you use Quick Connect so you can actually do this remotely. You don't have to be on the same local network as your network attached, as your Synology NAS device. So I'm just going to show you what the GUI looks like for that. All right, so it's pretty similar. There's a Version Explorer button. Down here is just my history. So when I click on the Version Explorer button, now in comparison, these are the files as they appeared on the computer. So as you can see, I can drill down, and now I have these documents, and then I can restore them onto the Synology NAS, or I could download one of these files onto the computer. So that's a nice usability improvement that just makes it easier to restore your data. We've also optimized CloudStation in the latest version. So when DSM 6 came out, we released CloudStation 4. So that is the orange line. What you're looking at here is how long it takes to sync 100,000 files. So in the previous version, as you added more files, the synchronization time would take longer and longer. So now we've optimized our CloudStation engine. So now as you continue to add files, the synchronization time pretty much stays the same. So pretty much what that means is it's the size of the files that are going to matter more than the number of files that you have. So this is a nice usability improvement that we are introducing with this latest version. Oh, sorry. You switch button. All right. So that was synchronization. Now let's talk about backups. So we have a variety of backup applications. So we have Hyper Backup, we have Snapshot Replication, we have new in DSM 6.1 USB Copy 2.0, and an Agentless backup service. So the one thing to keep in mind with backups is the 3-2-1 backup strategy. This is something that is very common among home users and IT admins. You need to have 3 copies of your data in 2 different formats, and at least keep one of these copies off-site. So keep that in mind as we talk about all this. So Hyper Backup was introduced in DSM-6. This allows for version backup. So when I was talking about historical file versions with CloudStation, it's the same concept here. You can have up to 65,000 versions of your files. You could back up to USB drives, other Synology NAS products, rsync servers, or even to cloud services. This does a block-level incremental backup with file-level deduplication. There are a ton of options available for this. Of course, you could schedule your backups if you want to run them daily, weekly, etc. You could do all that. You could do transfer encryption to make sure that when you're sending this data over the network that nobody is able to intercept the data. You could encrypt it at the destination, even if it's not encrypted at the source. And we also support compression for this. So if you don't need all those fancy features, we actually do offer just a simple file-level backup where it just does like a one-to-one copy of the files. And you can do that to USB drives or through rsync. So let's talk about how we've improved this with the latest version of DSM. So let's say the CEO creates a file, and he shares this file out to the different departments at this company. So you have the IT department, the research and development department, and the sales. They all modify the file in different ways. So the IT person renames the file. The research and development person modifies the file and creates a copy of it. And then the sales lead also creates a copy and renames it. So the improvement here is that it's aware of all these changes. So when you rename it and when you duplicate it, it's still the same file, just you change some slight properties. So it's aware of that, and it knows not to create another copy of those files. So therefore, you're going to save some space there. So your actual change in the data is the modified data, and that's it. So it's going to be much more efficient than the previous version, and we're going to keep improving this over time. All right, so snapshot replication has a lot of features, so we're going to stay on this one for a couple minutes here, which is why I grabbed the water. So snapshot replication is based on the BTRFS file system that we introduced with DSM 5.2. This new file system allows for on-device file versioning. So as you can see, having multiple versions of your files are a very big theme with us these days. This also gives you bit rot detection. So if you have a file that is corrupted, the file system can actually automatically detect that and then warn you about it. And we are going to see some improvements regarding that Derek will talk about in the last presentation of the day. You could also adjust your retention rates. So you could save up to 65,000 snapshots. Well, that's a lot of data to dig through, right? So you could say, like, hey, I want to have 7 weekly snapshots. I want a couple daily ones. I want hourly snapshots. You could adjust those numbers very easily. This is not just for files. This is also for your iSCSI LUNs. So there is a snapshot manager available for Windows Server and VMware as well. So that was all the snapshot side. On the replication side, you could replicate not just your files and your iSCSI LUNs, but the corresponding snapshots as well. So you get everything that you have on your primary network-attached storage device, you could replicate that to an offsite server. We support extended replication. So once it's on that secondary server, you can then send it to a third server, and it's intelligent enough to know the relationship between all those servers, and it will give you a nice little chart that shows that. Since file versions in BTRFS are very, very efficient, you could recover the data very quickly. Essentially, the file version is just the difference between the original file and the change. So all you need to restore is the change itself instead of sending that entire file over the network. So therefore, your recovery is much faster. There's also a switchover and failover support. So if something happens to your primary server, you can use your secondary server as your primary site. And then when everything is working again at your primary site, you can then restore it back. So it's very aware of its relationship at all times and what's going on. So it's a very intelligent way to replicate your data across networks. So how have we improved? Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm going to go ahead and give you a demo so you can kind of visualize these features a bit more, because I did ramble on a little bit and just list off stuff. So, all right. So I'm going to close CloudStation Backup here. So I mentioned file versions in here. So let me show you how you set that up. So this is snapshot replication. It, of course, has an overview that says, hey, everything is going well. Snapshots are done on a shared folder level or on an iSCSI LUN level, so you don't have to turn this on for every single folder that you have. So when I mentioned that you have different retention settings, it's very easy to set up. So I'm going to go into the document folder here, click on the settings. So this is my schedule. So this is how often I'm taking snapshots. And then down here, I can choose how many snapshots to retain so I don't fill up my storage or just want to make it easier to restore data. So let me tell you how you access the snapshots. There's a couple different ways to do it. And there's a lot of variety here, which is why I want to show you it instead of just talking about these features. So you can click Recovery. And now I can go to the Documents folder. And now I can click Recover. And it shows me all my file versions. So when I click on one of these, so this is a snapshot from yesterday. So let's click on this one. Click Browse. And now I get to see the historical versions of all these files and restore them as needed. I want to go back to the root folder here and show you one of the ways that I'm navigating this. So this is a shared folder called Documents. Notice that there's a snapshot folder right here. So this is a read-only folder that contains the snapshots. And then it gives me the same view. So this means that if somebody logs in through a file station, if they log in through their Mac computer, it's actually able to see the snapshot folder so users can do self-service recovery. So if you're an IT admin, they're not emailing you, hey, I need to get this file back. They can actually do it themselves. This does integrate into Windows. So let me show you that. So here's Windows Explorer, and I have a mapped network drive. So this is that same Documents folder. I also have the snapshot folder here, but I'm not going to use it. I could right-click, go to Properties, and then go to Previous Versions, and all those appear there as well. So it integrates very smoothly with Windows, and it's very similar concept here. Just drag out your file that you need to use. So as you can see, this is a very powerful tool. File versions are very important in the age of ransomware. You need to be able to restore back at specific times when your data gets hit with these crypto viruses that exist. So we have, as you can see, a very big suite of these capabilities now. So how have we improved this in the latest version of DSM? So now we have resumable replication. Let's say you have a network issue, something happens where the connection is interrupted and you can't continue to replicate. Well, now you can pause that replication task and then resume it at a later time. We also offer local replication. So you can go replicate data from one volume to another. So the use case for this is, let's say you have a head unit that has your file versions on it. And so what you can do is set up an expansion unit on that's connected to it, and then do your replication to that expansion unit, so you do have lots of redundancy there for your data. All right, let's move on to the new stuff. So now we have USB Copy 2.0. If you're familiar with our products, you might not know what USB Copy is. The reason being is that it was tied to a hardware button on the front of some of our products. You'd attach a USB drive, and then you'd press the C button on the front, and it would copy the data. Well, now we've made this feature available to all of our products. So this allows for importing and exporting the data to the USB drive or from it. You can have actions take place automatically when you connect the USB drive, and of course, you can customize all this. So there are a variety of import and export options. You can have it import all of the data from the USB drive. You can have it import into a specific folder. You can have it import and organize by date. And you can also, of course, export data to the USB drive. So you can use it as a form of backup. There are multiple copy modes while you're doing this. So you have multiple versions. What this does is every time you run one of these copy tasks, it will create a new folder for you. It also does mirroring, so let's say you attach a USB drive and you have it synced up with the shared folder, it'll just make both of those the same. If you don't want to lose your data when you connect it, you can use the incremental mode. That way, if you delete a data on one of the locations, whatever direction you're going, it won't remove it from your original backup. So if you have a USB drive that has a bunch of photos on it, for example, and you delete some photos to make some room, those are still going to be on your NAS even though you ran the same task again. And there is a lot of ways you can customize it. As I mentioned, you could run it when you plug in the USB drive. And also, to make you aware of this, it actually can use the built-in hardware functions. So there's like a beeping sound that you could have your Synology NAS make. So you can trigger it. So you could have it, when you plug it in, it beeps. When the backup job is done, it can beep again. You can also use the LED indicators on the front to do the same thing. All right, so another new package is our Agentless Server Backup. We have not finalized a name yet, but what this does is this lets you back up computers from your Synology NAS instead of using software that's installed on the computers. So that means it's installation free. There's no software that you're installing on these computers. You don't have to use the built-in Windows backup to do this. Currently, this is compatible with Windows and Linux, and this allows you to centralize all your backup tasks. So let's say you need to back up 10 different computers. Well, all these computers are going to be set up slightly differently. They're going to have their own setup. You'd have to log into each all of them and get this backup software, or push out the software. So what this allows you to do is just to stay within DSM and then do these backups from within DSM instead. And this does offer the same copy modes that I mentioned for USB copy. So you have the version backup, the mirrored backup, and the incremental. This does integrate with the Windows Volume Snapshot service, so files that are in use, this allows them to be backed up. And of course, this will integrate with BTRFS, so the snapshots that I keep mentioning will work with this feature as well. So I'm going to go ahead and hop into the demo for this one. All right, so currently the package is labeled backup to me. We have not finalized that. So this is the interface. It's pretty simple, right? So I'm going to go ahead and create a backup and back up this computer that I'm using right now. So I'm going to click create. And like I said, it gives me all these options. So you have the multi-version, the mirroring, and the incremental. I'm just going to do an incremental backup. So it asks for the server address. So I'm going to use the IP address of the computer. Then I just need the account name and the password. All right, so now I'm browsing the files that are on this computer. So I just want to snag the documents. So I'm going to go to the user account for this particular user and just check off documents and click next. So now I need to name it. I'm just going to do document backup. And then the local path is the path on the Synology NAS where I'm going to save it. Oh, but I conveniently have a shared folder called backup to me to use. So I'm going to click on that, and then I can set up a schedule. I'm going to run this at 4 a.m. daily. Click apply to apply all my settings. All right, so now it says it's ready. If it was 2 a.m., 4 a.m., it would run automatically. So let's just run it right now. So now it's going to reach out and contact the computer that I'm using and start this backup process. So there you go. So as you can see, we have a lot of options to back up and restore your data. You can provide file versioning on your device. We now have integrated backups within the NAS itself, so you don't need to install any software on your computers. And you can send this data off-site. You can send it to a USB drive. We have plenty of options, because that is ultimately the core of what the Synology NAS does. It is for your data and making sure that it's safe. And that's it. Thank you.